All right, so I wanted to take a minute to go over some of our e-collar work that isn't specifically for recall. So basically layering in the tool for other obedience command, largely stationary commands, and a little bit about how we integrate it into leash work as well. So rather than her usual gear setup that we've done for more of our public access training where we've got a prong collar on, her e-collar, and her flat collar, I have her on a slip lead for this and her e-collar. I've also hooked the e-collar up to an audio box so you'll be able to hear the timing of when I am pressing the buttons. So I'll talk a little bit about my timing choices here, how I'm using the actual buttons, and then also the levels and how I'm choosing levels for her if I choose to use much of the stim during now. So she's getting to a point that, especially with the stationary work, she is fairly fluent in the e-collar. The recall work, she still is kind of figuring out the fine-tuning pieces, and because our recall work is higher stakes, typically I'm going a little slower with hitting the point of feeling like we are at full reliability. But with our stationary work, usually we're looking more at our down stays, our place stays, and a little bit more of our on-leash work. And so that, while still important, is a little less like life or death as far as if you're going out and about and you're making decisions that may impact the safety of the dog. So with this, it's a little lower stress as far as setting up and working through. We can do a lot more formal setups, but you can also roll this into your everyday as well. So I'm gonna let her drag the slip lead after we get a couple of successful reps at the exercises. Just like with our long line work for our recall, I have a leash on her as a backup in case I need it. But I am at the phase with her where I want her to start feeling what it's like, feeling what it's like for the e-collar to work solo. And if we continue getting a little of this normal puppy naughtiness, I'll show you a little bit how to layer the e-collar into discouraging some of these like nuisance behaviors like chewing. For her, sometimes that can be effective as well with some of the nuisance barking, but we'll chat about that separately. So diving in, we've already done a bit of work in person. A bit of work in person with our place stays, so we'll start there. And basically, I'm just going to show you the timing with how the e-collar fits in with this known behavior that you've already practiced the mechanics with as far as leash pressure. So with our e-collar, we're looking at a very similar system in theory to our leash. It's kind of just our leash without a leash. So you'll notice even there, like as she's chewing on the leash and I want to discourage that, how I just add a little bit of pressure with the leash until she stops, and then I give that pressure super, super light. That is the same function that we'll use the e-collar for, and I'll show you that in real time as well. So for this chewing of the bed, we're at a very low e-collar level, but I'm gonna wait till she's doing that again, and I'm gonna do the same here. She may not do it, which is fine, it's a good thing, but if I have the opportunity to show you the timing on that as well, that'll be very helpful for you too. All right, so we're gonna dive into a little bit of that sending to place and staying on place. So with place, that's kind of the biggest difference between place and our sit stays and down stays is that it's not only staying on the position, but also going to the position. So we'll play with that a little bit. Iga, you ready? Let's go. So you'll notice I gave her that release cue. Usually my let's go is, hey, we're just, we're moving on to an exercise, so pay attention. It's kind of an informal command, but you can use your yes for your terminal marker, or your release of just go. And so we'll play with that. All right, Iga, let's go. Good girl. Send her back to place. Iga, place, tap, tap. So for this, because I have a pretty strong idea that she's gonna go when I ask her, I'm just tapping on the e-collar just to remind her that that pressure exists and that it's sending her to place. So it's giving her a quick, light, successful rep where she's thinking a little bit more. Let's go. Good girl. Iga. Place. Good. Let's go. Let's see if I can capture that leash chewing a bit. Get in frame. So here, tap, 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 tapping, holding out, and then releasing as soon as she releases on the leash. So there is a possibility that she didn't realize that the stim there there was for the leash biting because we were so close to the place. I'm really only choosing to do that because I want to stay in the frame to be able to show you. So it's not a perfect training moment, but I want to kind of show you what that timing looks like to discourage that behavior. You ready? Let's go. Good girl. Good. So now notice I started holding that button just until she released it. So we tried it at a 2 at first and then a 4. That was at a 6, so still very low levels, but just enough to make her aware of it and discourage that chewing behavior. All right, Iga, place. And we've taught her this automatic down. She likes to default to a down anyways, so as far as functionality, I like to keep that. So here we're working stay work, so she clearly will send to place very nicely. I'm dropping the leash because she's very reliable on that, and then we're going to start playing around with this with the leash just dragging instead, so I don't have as much of that backup as guidance, but I can pick it up if I need it. So I'm going to play around now with some of the stay work as well. So she sends there, she releases fine, but we also want to be able to use our e-collar to maintain position as well as send to position. So I'm going to kind of intentionally distract her a bit. Good girl. And I'll reward her if she stays on place as well. So I'm not really setting her up to fail. I'm just setting up the possibility to show you guys what the timing of that would look like. Good girl. So you see that one was a little bit harder for her. We'll get some distractions out. Good girl. So you can see I just gave her that little nope interaction so that she could hear that marker of nope, that's the wrong choice, and that's not going to earn you the reward. So it's less of a punishment, just more of a that wasn't the right answer, to give her a little social feedback. And I used the stim there to kind of push her back to that down stay on place. So as soon as she shows that intent to get up, that's when I'm holding the stim. Ideally, I'm setting my training up as much as possible to not need that, but I do want her to experience that so that she is able to understand what to do if you are good working through this in the future. So this would be a good one if you want to work on her not jumping on guests, getting overexcited at the door. So practicing people coming in and out of the house and keeping her on her place bed will be functionally very useful. And then when I'm ready, I can release her and allow her to interact with that toy. You ready? Get it. Go. And if I need to help her out because she's a little stuck on position, which is a good thing, good. I can just use the leash to help show her that this is the time that is acceptable and appropriate for her to engage with the toy, not when she's in her place stay. You ready? Yeah. Alright, and then we'll put that away for now, so I'll send her to place. Iga, place. Good, and you'll notice I didn't use the e-collar at all because she immediately showed intent to follow through with the cue. You're a good girl. Super. So that's what it'll look like as we start going into our avoidance phase. So our escape phase is basically the dog learns how to turn the e-collar pressure off. Once the dog is mastering that, then we start moving very quickly into our avoidance phase. So she's able to have success in the behavior and avoid feeling the pressure entirely. But if she were to not move into position on cue, then we can use this to steer her there. You ready? Iga. Get it. Good girl. So we're going to take the place position out, and we're going to talk about some of our other positions. All right. We'll grab our leash. Because we're changing drills, I'm going to kind of reset and be ready to guide her with the leash if I need to. But we're going to focus first on down, because that's her easiest. So, Iga. Down. She pops right in. I don't suspect you'll need a lot of e-collar pressure for this. She's very willing to pop into a down position and hold it. Place is just slightly more complex, but same rules would apply to your down position. If she breaks down early, that's when I'd use the leash or the e-collar pressure to help guide her back into position. And if she doesn't go into a down right when you cue her, same idea. And I would practice this in many different environments. I'd start low distraction, easier, calmer environment, and then work on doing this in areas of higher distraction. So we've practiced this when we're working around other groups of dogs, when she's on a long line and she's got a little distance from me, out in public where there's people and other like traffic distractions that she may not see at home every day, and she's had a lot of success with that. So you can kind of keep playing with it to keep it fresh and to keep generalizing it, since there's only so many places and things we can do in the course of 4 weeks, but she has a good head start. Sit is a little more challenging for her, so I'll show you guys that. Get it. And so mostly the only reason that sit is challenging for her is because she likes to, what I call melt into the down, and so I think a lot of that is because she finds the down position comfortable and reinforcing in and of itself, but also because we started layering in e-collar pressure to the down position early. She has a preference for it. So this will take a little bit more playing with. I don't find sit to have as much functional use unless it's in the context of loose leash walking, in which case I don't find we need the e-collar quite as much because we can just use the leash in those moments, but I'll show you the practical application in case you want to fine tune that in the future. Yeah, let's go. Good girl. All right, so we'll play around a little bit with it. I'm going to use it just the leash first rather than the e-collar. Let's go. Just because I want her to be thinking about that position early. Sit. Rather than thinking about, let's go, the last position that we did. So you'll notice I just added a little bit of leash pressure to move her forward. If I had to fully reset, I would, but since she popped back onto a sit, I'm happy with that. Let's go. Good girl. Reset her by just walking her in a little circle. Sit. Good. I'm going to reward her in that position just because I know it's one that's a little tougher for her. Good. Yes. Good girl. Again, sit. And if she pops into a down, I may give, oh, that was a little high. Oh, that wasn't even very high. I think it just surprised her, so that was only a 4. It's also the first time she's used the audio, so she might be anticipating a little bit. You ready? We'll pop her down to a 3. Good. Let's go. And that was actually a really good moment to talk about levels. So she is, get it? Down. So she is one where it depends on the context. I mean, every dog is like this, but it depends on the context what level you'll choose on the e-collar remote. Generally, I want the lowest level possible to guide the dog into position, but the highest level necessary in order to get the result and show that the dog is understanding and noticing the e-collar. So I don't want it to be so high that we get a response like that seems very startling or very unpleasant for the dog. I want it to just be like a tactile reminder, unless I'm in an emergency situation where my dog is taking off after a deer or something like that. So there, you're gonna run into scenarios like that where your dog is responding well to one level, and then in another context, or even here where maybe she relaxed a little bit, or she's anticipating feeling the e-collar, or maybe she wasn't expecting it in that moment, then you may see that startle response, and all that's going to tell me is that I need to bump down during this session because she's noticing it and she's very focused, versus if we were to do this outside, you'd likely have to bump up higher than what we had it at, just because her perception has changed because of how much distraction is in the area and what her state of mind is. So I actually really like that we caught that on video because you get to kind of see what the balancing act is, and that way when you hit those moments it's not quite so scary for you because that's a super normal part of the process. It's not one that we look forward to, but it's one that's important for us to be able to really kind of learn what levels are best for her as we go. Definitely smooths out as she gets more experience with the tool as well, so you guys are building confidence together. Let's go. Good girl. You got sit. Good. Nope. Good. You'll notice I just used a little bit of leash pressure because I don't want to confuse her with the e-collar. Toughest part about the e-collar is it doesn't give directionality, so it does allow us to add pressure, but it doesn't really give any information with that pressure, which is why I depend on the leash as we're still kind of building these things. Let's go. So we'll play a little bit with both. As she's having success, I may layer a little e-collar. Sit. Good. So there I chose to tap because that kind of lightens the pressure a little bit. For something like a down where I don't mind that she really pushes into it, I'll hold, but because I don't want her to lose confidence and like melt, that's why I'm choosing to tap for the sit versus hold. Let's go. Good girl. Sit. Nope. Good. Good. Get it. And we'll do one more just like that. Set it up a little differently though. Ika. Sit. Good. Play around a little bit with the sting work. Same rules will apply for our other positions. Good. Good. Nope. Good. You can see even that petting is one that kind of stimulates her into melting because she likes to roll and get belly rubs. That can be a good distraction. Good girl. Nope. So here I'm going to keep that pressure on. It's super light. And then I'll use the leash to help her back into position so she knows what that pressure is asking of her. Good girl. Nope. Good. So she's starting to self-adjust. Bit of an ugly sit, but Ika. Good. Sit. And I can just reset her and help her with that. Good. Get it. All right, and Ika. Down. And so basically the biggest thing that I want to send home with you guys, and we'll talk about this in person as well, is just kind of the versatility of the e-collar. You know, these are kind of our 3 core stationary behaviors that we'll teach is our sit, stay, down stay, and place stay. But you could layer the e-collar into just about anything. So we layer it into loose leash walking as well, which we'll walk through in person, or I may share some other videos that I've made with other dogs. Pretty straightforward. She responds very nicely to that. But you really can layer it into just about anything you want to teach your dog, whether it's sending them to their crate, you know, recall. There's lots of things you can do with this tool to increase speed in positions. Obviously reliability is a big one. We can also use it to discourage behaviors that we don't want as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that in person as well, but kind of same idea with timing where it's always that feel of steering the dog into behavior. There are ways that you can use this tool as more of a cutoff or a punishment to discourage behavior, or to just be a bit more punitive. That could have its place in certain areas of training, but I strongly prefer using it as reinforcement where it is generating behavior rather than just cutting behavior off, just because I don't find that gives the dog as much information. But there are limits to that depending on your goals. With her though, she's very willing, she's interested in participating, she's very sensitive to the e-collar, so I think that typically using it as a form of negative reinforcement gets you the best attitude out of your dog and prevents us from hitting points where there's higher levels of stress or where the dog is just worried about making a mistake, because it's really there as guidance rather than as punishment. So you know, with that, the theory is kind of always the same, where we're looking to just use that guiding pressure to push the dog into behavior. It's very rare, if not unheard of, to teach the dog a behavior with the electric collar. In theory, it could be done, but you know, generally speaking, I like to layer it into behaviors I've already taught, either with food or with the leash, just because those tend to have a lot more clarity, and this tool is more a method of proofing and creating long-term stability in behaviors and reliability in behaviors. So It is a learning process to really gain confidence with this tool. Even with just the function of continuous stimulation and changing of levels, just getting comfortable with how the tool works and how your dog responds to it does take a bit of getting used to. I find just taking it slow. With her, because she's at this point where she has a significant amount of fluency but isn't entirely fluent in the tool, layering in little bits at a time. So you may be able to do little sessions like this where you focus just on those isolated behaviors under low distraction. I would start there, but as soon as you kind of are getting a good feel and you're getting good results there, I'd very quickly start layering it into more organic situations. More often than not, when I'm layering this in with my own dogs or wanting to continue developing work with my dogs or just get more practice so that they kind of keep up their training, I will typically go out for walks like I normally would. So whether that's fully off leash for my dogs at this point, but dragging a long line for a long time with them before we hit that point, and just practicing throughout the walk, occasionally having a recall, having a downstay, and then that way it really integrates into your life and you don't have the context of your dog just recognizing this is a very formal training session, since we're always training, and ultimately we want results during our real world experiences, not when we've set up to just train our dogs. Unless you're someone who's training specifically for sport, it's pretty rare that the utility of your training is just going to be during formal sessions. So we'll chat a little bit about how to strategize that, but overall, I just wanted to demonstrate what the timing of that looks like, how her response is to the tool, and give you guys some visual as you continue practicing and getting comfortable. But of course, we'll do more hands-on work in the follow-up because that's where the magic really happens. But any questions, let me know. It is something that will take more than a couple of sessions for you to get a strong feel of and for her to gain full confidence in. We get a lot of mileage done in 4 weeks, but the real bulk of the training is going to happen in the follow-up as she relates the stimulation to the cues that you give, and creates that reliability at home and in her normal day-to-day outings with you guys.